I'm bipolar and ADHD. So bipolar, I've only found out what it means, and that it's an actual mental illness when I was about 33, 34. I was diagnosed with depression because I had a couple of businesses that went bankrupt. Well, not went bankrupt, but a couple of things happened. It was the recession and 2008, 2009 recession. I went to go and work for a large corporate um, company. And there was this guy, and he was always depressed. And I knew what depression was and what a psychopath was. And this guy, one day came in there smiling, and in the coffee area, and I was like, "What's wrong with this guy? He's always depressed." And I asked him, "What's up with you today? What's going on?" And he said to me, "Well, the doctors finally diagnosed him correctly with bipolar," and he made a snorting sound. So, because I thought he had a cold or something. And I got home, asked my wife what kind of a type of cold is bipolar. Yeah, so that was the extent of my knowledge about what bipolar was. Her being a registered nurse, ICU qualified, lecturer, nursing lecturer, she found it very hilarious and funny that I didn't know what this was, and that I thought it was a type of cold. And so that's the first time I heard it. I'd been seeing a psychiatrist because of the depression, and he planted a little seed after a couple of months, and said that, sometimes you come in here and you bubbly, and you're not always depressed. So you're not the normal depressed person. And maybe it could be something more than that. And then they plant that little seed, and then it grows in your head, and so on and so on. And next time I got there, I'm like, okay, well, what else can it be? But luckily I was in a good medical aid because my wife was a registered nurse at a hospital. So the medical aids was very good, and they paid for, like, I think it was at that stage I was going to see the psychiatrist like once a week, and maybe once every 2 weeks. I don't know, I can't remember. But at that stage it was a lot because I had a lot of shit to deal with. And and then when I got back there, he's like, I was like, okay, let's explore. What did you mean by saying that I'm not your typical depressed person? And he started laying out the whole cyclothymia thing. You don't want to call it bipolar because then people freak out. So let's just call it cyclothymia because you are able to work and so on. So let's just ease you into this whole thing, which eventually comes out to be bipolar. But it worked. I think it bullshits a lot of people. It's like, bipolar light, Stephen Fry's story, or that he did, where he says he's bipolar light, cyclothymia. Anyway, so the bipolar started getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, and I had to be. I mean, I had fucking serious manic episodes where when I started the YouTubing thing long time ago, but I never made videos on YouTube because I'm a South African, and I had some very crude things to say about the ANC government, not because they're black, but because of their racism, because of black economic empowerment, because of affirmative action, employment equity, and the farm murders, and I was very verbal about these things, and I was scared I was going to get fired, so I was on BitChute. So I had quite a bit of a following on BitChute, and but they didn't pay any money or anything like that. So I decided, okay, well, let's go over to YouTube, and I started making content about American and the world politics and so on. Donald Trump was a big thing over there, and I got monetized on the channel, and then I went into serious depression last year because I linked my self-worth to not how good a husband I am, not how good a father I am, not what my income is, not what my capabilities are, but on my work and what my bosses think about it. And I was being told how shit I was for 3 to 4 years, and that by somebody who was one of my best friends. Okay, so that's the sad part of the whole story. Here's the good part of the story. He took me from one area to another, basically from one company to another company. I mean, went from he went over to a insurance, one of the largest insurance companies, if not the largest insurance company in South Africa, and we worked together at one of the largest health insurance companies in South Africa, and he came to fetch me over there. No, he didn't. I left to go and work at another company, and I got dismissed from the other company within the 3-month period, which they're allowed to do because they lost a client, and they lied to the client about what they could offer the client. And yes, and me, being honest, made the stupid mistake of stating the obvious, that there are systems around and the client can just utilize that instead of having it built. And I got fired. I got walked out, the walk of shame, security guards, as if I was going to do something. So that kind of sucked. And then I started my own thing again, and I was able to feed my family. And what I did worked in cycles. So when school holidays hit, then I would have no work. And I was actually sitting there planning to, get rid of myself, but I was just waiting for the policy I had to mature, because I had an exclusion rule for 2 years on the policy, and that would have expired in 2 weeks' time. And as I sat there and I was working out where and how and whatever, and this guy phoned me up and said to me, well, are you in the market? You want to come for an interview? And he created this false, because I got the job, obviously, and because he knew I was good at what I do, and I was persistent, and I was good, and I'm really good at what I do. really good at anything I can do. And yeah, so he didn't do me a favor by taking me on. He did himself a favor. And I never realized that until last year. So, yes, so I had this false loyalty to him because of the fact that he stepped in at the right moment when I was about to do something, which, yeah, don't want to say too much about that. Can't if I'm going to post this on YouTube, which I am going to. As a little documentary series. So that's that. And then I worked there a couple of years, used the train, and I didn't realize that I had ADHD. And I got to a point where I was passing out behind the steering wheel when he took me over from that company to another company, which is one of the biggest retailers in South Africa. And started passing out behind the steering wheel and getting in accidents. Now, it's okay if it's just me, but if I fucking hurt somebody else, it's something I won't be able to live with. Well, I can kill somebody if if they touch my daughter or my wife, but and I will feel nothing about it. But getting into an accident because of something that I know I had, and it's kind of weird how COVID played into this, because we were on lockdown for a long time, and we were told that we were not going back to the office, and this is the new way of working. So basically, we sold our house, we moved, used all of our money, building onto a parents' house because they were struggling at that stage, and my kid, there was a very good school that me and my wife both went to, and we wanted our kid to have a good experience in school, which we both didn't have, but it is a very good school. And so we made that decision to move and spent all our money on getting the house to a point where I can use it as an office, because my work said that this is the way that things are going to be going forward. This is the new way of working. We're going to be in lockdown and we're going to be working from home. Forward a little bit, spend all the money I made on my house, living with my parents-in-law, spend all the money on building an office, putting in solar panels, putting in inverters, putting in batteries, doing all of those things to be able to work from home. Then they come around and say that, sorry guys, things have changed. We need to steer the ship in another direction. You all need to come back to the office. And it was, that's when I started driving into work, and basically this happened a couple of times, and then I got into a riding club, and I was driving in with somebody else, and I just paid her petrol money, and then eventually she left the company, and then I drove to a couple of kilometers from my house to the closest town that somebody was in that worked with me, which was safer than driving in, because I work like 89 kilometers away from, or I live 89 kilometers away from where my offices are that I work, in peak traffic. So I'd go to his house and we'd pick it up from there. The problem was, it wasn't just me falling asleep behind the steering wheel in the mornings. It happened. It happened in the afternoons as well. And none of the doctors could figure out what's going on. I mean, I was sent to a neurologist. I was obviously seeing a psychiatrist. He sent me for a bunch of tests. Neurologist saw me a couple of times. He kept on looking at the anxiety medication as if that was the problem. And I kept on telling him, but I don't drink the anxiety medication. I only use it when I need to. Because at one stage I was very aggressive, and instead of upping my Epitech, which is actually for somebody who has or gets attacks, like I can't remember, but anyway, you fall on the floor and you get an attack, So it's that, but that's the only thing that keeps me calm or that stops my aggression. And I said to him that I started taking another one in the middle of the day just to sort of stay calm, obviously because me and my boss were having this arguments and so on. And yeah, because I'm not going to go too much into that detail, but basically it boiled down to I was drinking this medication, and then the neurologist took my money. He sent me for all these tests, and then he said to me, well, shit, I don't know what's wrong with you. You'll have to go see a internist, which I don't know what is. It's a specialist. It's like higher than a neurologist. He's like fucking one of the top doctors that you can see. But the problem is the medical aid that the company I work for, they only had 3 guys on their list that I could go and see, and the first appointment was 8 months later. So they basically threatened to fire me because I was feeding back to a new manager that was then put the guy that I got the job for. But he didn't relay the message that the reason I hadn't gone to a internist yet was because of the fact that our medical aid don't cover it. And so I had threats of getting fired and so on. And eventually the internist found, and I don't know how, it was, he's one of the top ones in South Africa, and I eventually paid for him myself for fear of getting fired. And I have a very good GP who my psychiatrist keeps on saying he's one of the most intelligent people he knows, and he doesn't know why this guy never became an internist, which is one of the top doctors. And he managed. I went to him and I said to him, look, I'm going to get fired, and nobody can figure out what's wrong with me. I mean, I've done all the blood tests, I've done the sleep studies, they've put me in the nut house for 2 weeks to figure out whether I'm just tired. They changed my meds out. They, all kinds of stuff. It's like everything was done in the past 2 years to try and figure out what's going on, and nobody could figure out what's going on. And he then said to me, okay, wait, he's got 2 friends that he'll phone, and he'll phone me back. And he arranged for an appointment for the next day with a internist. Brilliant guy. I mean, by the time I got there, when I take the neurologist and I take him, it's two totally world. The neurologist was screaming and shouting at his PA about the blood work and whatever. And it was just, and then the first time I had to pay him cash, and he was like basically just trying to get me out of there and looking at the medication and just pointing to acting like I was talking shit about drinking the Pax-10, which is, I don't know, the calming medication, which I don't drink. And yeah, this guy was like, he spent an hour on the phone with my GP before the previous day. He got an appointment with me at 8 o'clock in the morning in peak traffic time. So he's at work early in the morning, early riser, old guy. I mean, he doesn't need to work. I mean, you can see he's made his money. He's in one of the top hospitals in South Africa, and yeah, and he went through my stuff, asked me a couple of questions, looked at whatever, and 2 days later, I emailed them and said, "Okay, guys, but you know what's going on?" Well, before I left there, I was like, she's like, "Okay," and he said that, "Okay, since your medical aid isn't going to pay for this visit, we'll give him the pensioner's discount, 3,600 rand." Fucking, I was like, "Oh my god, that is a shitload of money, to be dead honest." And that's excluding the medication. Every time I go there, every time I request a prescription, because Ritalin is a schedule 7, 6 or 7 medication, you have to basically get a prescription in a specific manner every month. So yeah, and when I mailed them, they gave me the prescription, and no phone call, nothing, but I can't go back because I haven't finished paying him. I still owe him money. So, but the Ritalin works in a way they had to up it a lot. And then I moved over to my psychiatrist, and I said to him, "Look, dude, I can't afford to pay this guy this amount of money the whole time to write out prescription." And he's like, "No, I'll do it for free." And I said, "No, I'll come for a visit every month since I'm not going to my psychologist anymore." After 15 years, I found out he was a atheist. And only after 14 years of seeing him did I tell him that I got beaten by one of the teachers that I had, like caned 28 times, hit with a palm of the hand on the arse, and broke a ruler on my arse, all in one day. So, and that's basically when I was about 11, 12, and it seems that's what triggered the bipolar. But, you know, taking 14 years before you tell your psychiatrist that. All my friends I had to go have a beer with, we talk about it, like have one sentence about how you used to get hidings in school. So all my friends knew about it. I paid this guy how much money every month to go and see him, and I only tell him 14 years afterwards. So maybe it wasn't meant to be that relationship. That's my psychologist. That's the dude you speak to, I think. The psychiatrist, fucking awesome. It's a gay dude. He wears these weird shirts. Very intelligent guy. And I mean, he just fucking goes out of his way. I mean, I can't praise this guy enough. Between him and this, and my GP, and now this internist, I mean, it's just something totally different than what you're used to. I mean, compassionate, you know, it's these people that want to help. And yeah, so he put me on Ritalin, and then I asked my psychiatrist to up the dosage because he took too long, but he billed me for that, so that added to the bill that I owe him. I still have to go back to him, but it's definitely, ADHD. I didn't have meds. My meds ran out, so I was waiting for a prescription, and I kept on sleeping the whole time, which is the opposite of what I understood that Ritalin does. So me and my wife weren't very good, really not very good. But she's been doing a lot of research on the ADHD front. I'm just like fucking tired. I'm so over it. Bipolar, doing research on mental diseases. Like, I'm like, I don't want it. I don't want it anymore. Can't somebody else just get one of these fucking illnesses and just, leave me alone, And so she's been doing a lot of research about it, and a lot of the things that I do now make sense to her and to me. So, for instance, the one thing is my daughter's now in university, and uh, my wife said that we must go get a cool drink or water, and I started walking towards the stand that sells the water, and I left her behind. And then she shouted at me and said, "Wait for me." And I turned around, and then she said, "Do you realize you just walked away from me?" And I'm like, "But you saw I was walking. Why didn't you walk faster?" And then we went through this whole process, and she realized, or she said to me, that you get so focused on the one task that you just want to do that and you forget about everything else, including me. So it's explained a lot of things. And it's going a lot better. Yes. Plus, I realized that only I can fix myself. Nobody else can. And only I can decide what my worth is. Nobody else can. And if you are down and broken and you are trying to stand up and fix yourself, best you get rid of the shit around you. Yeah. The friends, the family, the additional baggage that you have to carry. It's not yours to carry anymore. If somebody can't bring something positive to your life, you don't need to have them in your life. And that's how I'm going to bring up my kid. The day that I start being a burden on her, then, cut me out. That's what I said to my wife, but she doesn't want to. So she seems to love me, so for some other reason. So the newest thing I do is I pick. Well, I used to do it when I was small as well, or little as well. So I pick on my face. And I think that's an anxiety thing. So I got to this whole website thing, and this woman's got like millions of views on mental disease, but she's like a psychiatrist or something, psychologist or psychiatrist, and at some other stage, they're probably going to fire my ass. So I need to do something to make sure that I have an income. And I know a lot about YouTube, search engine optimization, digital marketing. I mean, I've done all this stuff because my brain never stops. Website design. I'm a very technical. I've got a BA honors degree, which I finished like 4 years ago in business management. So I did my Cisco, my networking certification last year. I must still go and practice and write the exam. But yeah, the one thing I never realized, and my wife said it to me a couple of weeks back, is that I'm too intelligent to argue with. And I've always thought that I'm dumb. So that was quite a shocker. And when I spoke to people about it, they were like, yeah, no, you're very intelligent. And then things started making sense about clashes with me and my bosses, where I would factually debate them. Because I don't care if you wipe the floor in the toilets, clean the toilets, or whether or not you're the CEO of a multinational company, I'm going to treat you the same. And if you come to me and you attack me about something and you're factually incorrect, I will correct you. That is who I am. That's how I am. And some people don't like that. And that's where I'm at the moment, is that the person I got to where he is at the moment has changed so much that he can't handle the fact that I can debate him and beat him. So don't tie your worth to what you think other people think of you. That's what I learned this year. The second last day of this year, I watched a video about a guy standing in the ice like this, speaking into the camera on a road, icy road, and he was saying that, you know, we tend to look at what we're going to do in the new year and make New Year's resolutions, when in actual fact we need to look back. He says, and we don't need to look back and say what I could have done different or what I should have changed. He says, you must just look back and celebrate the fact that you made it to today. And that, to me, was, yeah, profound. Other people don't understand it because they weren't where I was. It was broken. And slowly but surely building myself back up. But on my terms.